What happens with all the other players that didn't play in that league? That's the players that are going to want the new CBA to be signed. Probably the deal that's on the table. Again, something we've talked about in the last few days. I think you're heading down a road where you may see players, the infighting is...
Somebody better start talking before I start screaming. That's Io Wilson, a 3-time MVP, posting a clip from the TV show Reasonable Doubt with a pointed caption that says it all. She's not celebrating the schedule release, not hyping the matchups, not promoting the season. She's demanding answers. And that 20-second clip perfectly captures where the CBA negotiations really stand right now. When the league's biggest star is publicly confused and frustrated, it signals a serious breakdown in communication. The real question is simple and uncomfortable. Who is keeping the players in the dark and why?
All right, black and white sports supporters, let's talk about the WNBA CBA. We got an article here that claims the CBA would have to be done by February in order for the season to not get delayed. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I know underneath the title of the article is something I disagree with right off the bat. And once again, it seems like another really pro-player article.
Here's what we know so far. The WNBA released its 44-game schedule on January 16th. With the season tipping off on May 8th and opening night headlined by a finals rematch between the Lynx and the Liberty. But buried inside a front office sports article from that same week was a far more telling detail. The Players Union had submitted its counterproposal to the league nearly a month earlier, and as of that Friday, they still hadn't received any response. No negotiation, no rejection, just complete radio silence. According to multiple sources, that proposal calls for 30% of gross revenue and a salary cap set at $10.5 million. By contrast, the league's last offer included a max base salary of $1 million in year one, rising over $1.3 million with revenue sharing, and approaching nearly $2 million by the end of the agreement. The league's proposed salary cap would start at $5 million and increase with revenue growth, while owners are offering roughly 70% of net revenue over the life of the deal.
So as the CBA progresses, that max number, along with all the other salaries, your minimums, your averages, all of that would go up as the CBA progresses. In other words, the owners are trying to build in a mechanism where the players can still make more money, but they get to see what their business is actually going to look like under this new media rights deal and this new landscape.
But stop right there. This is a critical distinction everyone keeps missing. The players are demanding 30% of gross revenue, while the owners are offering 70% of net revenue. Gross versus net. That's not a simple negotiation gap. It's two completely different financial universes. Gross revenue is every dollar that comes in the door before paying for arenas, travel, staff salaries, production costs, and marketing. Net revenue is what's left after all those operating expenses are covered. The owners have publicly stated that the players' proposal would result in roughly $700 million in losses. And here's the most telling part. They didn't even acknowledge the counterproposal. They didn't reject it, didn't counter it. They ignored it. That silence says everything about how seriously the league is taking the 30% demand. In their eyes, it's dead on arrival, and they aren't even pretending to negotiate it.
Sophie Cunningham came out the other day. All they're getting is like bits and pieces, some random emails or conversation, like tidbits, something. It sounds like all the players involved here don't exactly know what's happening. It goes on to talk about the fact that you're starting out with a finals rematch. It's crazy as hell. This literally doesn't mention the...
But this is where things start to get messy. A few days before Io Wilson's post, Sophie Cunningham went public and said that players are only receiving bits and pieces of information, random emails, occasional updates, small tidbits, not full briefings, not consistent communication from union leadership, just fragments that leave players guessing about what's actually happening at the negotiating table. Think about what that really means. There are only 144 roster spots in this league, and roughly 60 of those players spend their offseason in Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league paying six figures for 8 weeks of work. Those players have a financial cushion. They can afford to wait. They can afford to hold out for a better deal. But what about the other 84 players who didn't land Unrivaled contracts? The 6th, 7th, and 8th players in the rotation. The ones on WNBA minimum salaries who had to go overseas or take off-season jobs just to get by.
Off the table. We've also got Asia Wilson posting something that's kind of interesting because it gives you the sense that the players, the cracks in the foundation of the players union and what's going on is starting to show up. We talked about this the other day. We know one thing. I believe there's only right around...
That's where the cracks are starting to show for players without Unrivaled money. The leagues often looks very different. A max salary that climbs to nearly $2 million by the end of the deal. Minimum salaries rising proportionally. A $5 million salary cap that grows with revenue, meaning their contracts increase as the league makes more money. For players currently earning around $75,000 a year, that's real, tangible, life-changing money. And they're watching the clock. Training camp is set for April 19th. The draft is on April 30th. In a normal year, free agency wraps up by early February. But this year, even if a deal is signed in early February, free agency can't begin until early March. That leaves teams with less than 6 weeks to build rosters, prepare for the expansion draft, evaluate draft prospects, and get ready for training camp. The timeline is collapsing and the pressure is only increasing.
And no agreement to a third extension. Beyond legitimate speculation about the league's ability to start a season in May were questions about the 44-game slate. We know they're not going to move increase the schedule this year because of the World Cup. No big deal. The union proposed eliminating the designation altogether, but the league has been unresponsive to the suggestion. I guess talking about free agency involving the...
Now look at the schedule released through that lens. The league rolled out a full 44-game schedule with specific dates, opponents, and tip-off times, moving forward as if the CBA is already a done deal. They're telling fans to buy tickets, broadcast partners to lock in production schedules, and sponsors that the season is happening. That's not negotiating leverage. It's a public commitment. And it puts enormous pressure on the players' union. Because if the season is delayed or canceled, the public blame will fall squarely on them. The article mentioned this almost in passing, but it matters. Both sides have emphasized their commitment to the league's 30th season. Translation: neither side wants to be seen as the one that cancels games. But only one side has gone public with a 44-game schedule. The owners have put their cards on the table, while the players' union is still holding theirs close. And their own members don't even seem to know what's in their hand.
In other words, do we really believe that these teams, their leadership, they don't have their boards ready? I mean, surely they do, or it's the leadership in this league is irresponsible across all these teams. They should have all their mocks done for who they're going to protect and let go in the expansion and who they're going to target in free agency. That better be ready right now. In case a deal is signed today.
Here's what makes that front office sports article especially strange. It leads with a headline that the WNBA could be weeks away from delaying the season, and the subhead reads, despite releasing the schedule earlier this week, the WNBA likely needs to agree to a CBA by February to start the season on time. Not that the players' union needs to agree. Not that both sides need to reach a deal. Just that the WNBA needs to agree, as if the league is a holdout. But the league has already made an offer. The players countered. And the league didn't respond because that counter is financially impossible under their own admissions. So why is the media framing this as the league's problem? The owners have a deal on the table. They released a full schedule. They've publicly committed to a May 8th start date. At this point, it's the players' union that has to decide. Do they accept the offer? Do they counter with something realistic, or do they risk letting the season slip away entirely?
Problem now for the players. If they strike and we don't have a season, the players are going to get blamed. The public is firmly, do you still have a 20%, the old WNBA fandom that are like, pay them like NBA players? Sure, you still got those fans out there. They're idiots. They're not paying attention. They think there's some big conspiracy and the owners are hiding money. Mother frick. Dumb. Nonetheless, look, I said it. The pressure is on the players now. Fans are very aware of what's on the table, what's been offered. The schedule is out. People are worked into a lather. They're excited, circling the games they care about. If this league, if these players, and it will be on the players, if the players choose not to sign a CBA and the season goes kaput, or there's even 3 games lost, it's going to be devastating to this league. Devastating. Because you got a lot of people this close to walking away from this league anyway after that mess last year around Caitlin Clark's injury. Tell me.
And that brings us back to Aya Wilson's post. Somebody better start talking before I start screaming. The real question is, who is she talking to? The league or her own union? Right now, there's no CBA deadline. The last extension expired on January 9th. That means talks can drag on forever. But every day without a deal pushes free agency back, crushes roster timelines, and raises the risk of delaying the season. The league has made its position clear. A public offer, a 44-game schedule, a May 8th tip-off, salaries rising, caps growing, revenue sharing locked in. The union's position? Murky, 30% of gross revenue. Eliminating the core designation. Proposals the league hasn't even responded to because they're viewed as financially impossible. And here's the real danger. Public opinion has shifted. With the new $2.2 billion media deal, fans can see the numbers now. When they see max salaries nearing $2 million and 70% of net revenue going players, sympathy for the union is fading fast. If games get delayed, the backlash won't hit the owners. It'll hit the players, especially after last season's Caitlin Clark controversy. Fans are out of patience. So when Aya speaks out, maybe she's not just frustrated. Maybe she sees the cracks. A divided union, broken communication, and a once-in-a-generation opportunity slipping away. Because in the end, it won't be the stars with financial cushion who decide this. It'll be the rank-and-file players who can't afford to miss paychecks.